Most everybody I have on is the first time.
Well, I got hit Friday with by the team on how bad our communication is.
Oh, yeah?
And the idea that came out from the team success, kind of our HR lady was, I think we ought to do like just an internal podcast. Jack.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
Well,
we've got the guy who used to do this podcast with us.
Yeah.
He has his own deal now where he's helping contractors with internal podcasts.
Do that, stuff like that.
Yeah, so if you needed a reference, let me know.
Okay.
He can get you set up.
Well, you got to communicate with your people, right? And I'm not a good communicator when knowing what is in my brain and what needs to be dispersed is not a strong suit.
Yeah. There's a lot of construction business owners out there that just say like, yeah, I'm not a good communicator. But then the more I've realized, it's like, but that's your job. But that's your job. Like, building stuff's not your job anymore. Your job is communicating with your people in all different ways. And then I think like the best guys out there, we were just talking about him on a bunch this morning, like a Dan Garcia. He's a really good communicator.
Exactly.
And
yes.
and you start to see this pattern of these guys are really good communicators. And then your business is getting to a point where, you've got people spread out over here, over there. You're not getting everywhere. So how do you get stuff in your head out to all these people and all these different sites effectively?
And to discern what they need to know is the hardest.
Yeah.
It is one of the hardest things I think we're struggling with internally. Just what do our people need to hear?
Yeah.
We can figure the how they're going to hear it.
Sure.
But there's just a lot of, one thing is the new building, right? Lots to communicate around a new building.
Mm-hmm.
An email or a flyer on a desk doesn't always do it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. How many people are you going to have in that building to start, I guess?
Every day, about 25.
20. Is that including the shop?
No, that's just in the office.
Just in the office. Yeah. Yeah. Because when I visited you guys this summer, I mean, it was, you guys were packed in there.
An office, 2 trailers, and a Connex.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of free space. That's for sure.
No. And we got some growth. I mean, there's some office or there's some cubicles and stuff that aren't, won't have butts in the seats right now, but it gives us a place to grow.
That's 2 floors, isn't it?
2 floors.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's really nice. And you bought the piece of property?
Yep.
That's so nice.
Yeah. Well, it is a swamp. But the good thing is we're in the right business too.
Well, fortunately, a good site contractor.
That's right. That's right. Know somebody who, a little soil stabilization.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like everything's going that way out there, the soil stabilization. That seems like almost the gold standard now.
Well, there's no good sites for the most part left.
Yep.
If you are in the greater Charlotte area, chances are a good red dirt, rock-free, wetland-free site is probably not there.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and some of the schedules on some of these sites too are like, could we have the whole warehouse yesterday? You're like, excuse me, what? And some of the stuff goes up so fast.
Just push. Well, you take your rain days out, right?
Yeah.
And that's we were on one recently when the developer made a great decision. I mean, it was a cost, but he's building through January, February. He is ahead of schedule, and that doesn't happen if you don't take rain days out.
Is it usually lime out there?
Depends. A lot lime mainly for our red clay type soil.
Yeah.
But we've a good conversation is we've just tried to cut the rock out of jobs because rock in Charlotte is stupid right now.
Is it? Why is that?
There's 2 players in the market for the most part.
I got you.
So we have turned to cement stabilization for subgrade.
Oh, when you're buying rock.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
when you're buying. I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's Mr. Developer, Mr. Owner, we can save X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
You're not going to have ABC under your parking lot. You're going to have cement treated subgrade, and we'll pave right on top of that.
Yeah, and if you were to use rock, which is the traditional way to do things, it's only gone up. And then it's like there's only 2 places you can buy it, and then coincidentally the prices are like just about the same.
Oh, we get the same price increase in the mail, the same day.
So no, I'm not accusing anybody of collusion. No. However, it's amazing how similar the pricing is.
Oh, it's crazy. So we get the quarry price increase first, and then 2 days later we get the ready mix, and then the asphalt supplier calls and says, "Oh, price has to go up there too," and it's just so. Yeah. There's those are conversations that a lot of us around town have had. Because you can go to Raleigh 2.5 hours up the road and about $10 a ton less.
Wow.
It was like, oh, well, Raleigh rock must be cheaper than Charlotte rock.
Yeah, they must have some
something
amazing way to produce rock so much cheaper. Yeah.
It's maddening, but
you just can't do anything about it.
What do you do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have 57 stone under sewer.
Sure.
You have to have washed stone sometimes under a building pad.
But if you can reduce the stone, there you go. So that's why you all are in stabilization.
Yes.
How many machines do you have?
Just one.
Just one.
Just one. That crew stays just slammed. And we still kept some relationships with the guys that did it before we did it.
Yeah.
To help us out of binds and stuff. But
sure. That'll
be an area where growth is needed.
Yeah. I mean, all up and down the East Coast now. There's stabilization machines everywhere. I remember I first saw it not too long ago. I feel like it hasn't been like almost the standard for all that long. Like it's still.
You're right. I think
more of a recent
4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
It just, when dollars became less important than schedule on a project.
When schedule started to drive things.
Yep.
Yeah. And like the East Coast, I mean, it's just the schedule's driven the residential stuff. Because there's been an enormous influx of people into a place like Charlotte. I mean, Charlotte, Raleigh, like 2 of the highest growth areas in the United States right now. And then you have evolved the Port of Savannah driving a lot, Charleston driving a lot,
Columbia,
Virginia Beach, like so there's the South Carolina, North Carolina has lured a lot of industry.
Big industry
that need big boxes to store their smaller boxes within. And it's just I first went out there with Morgan Corp, and just to see the development in South Carolina, North Carolina, it was just like, what is going on here? And it hasn't stopped.
No, I probably tell people once a week in conversations, we're blessed to be where we are.
Yeah.
Like us in particular, we wouldn't be making some of the business decisions we are making if we were in, middle Ohio.
Yeah.
I mean, just like, nobody's coming to see me here.
Sure.
But it's, and you can go north of Charlotte to Raleigh, Charlotte to Columbia is going to connect itself. Columbia to Charleston's already ready. I mean, you've seen that growth, but it's a great place to be building right now.
Yeah, Columbia's booming. It is crazy how much money is getting spent down there. Yeah. It is. I mean, the first time I visited Columbia to visit Contour, old Heath Hanna down there, it was like a pretty sleepy college town. You're like, not a whole lot going on around here, and then it has just exploded.
It cracks me up every time I see Heath post something that he's moving more big dirt somewhere in the greater Columbia area. And it's like, I mean, at some point, it never stops.
Yeah. Talk about right place, right time.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's a smart guy too, but it's like, that's a great market to be in right now.
And it's with Columbia to Charleston and then Columbia to Charlotte, Columbia to Greenville. Like it will grow every direction. And that's a great thing for those companies down there.
I first came across you guys when I was visiting Morgan Corp. I was in the Carolinas a lot when I was starting out because my very first paid gig was for Bellwether Forest Products out of Columbia. And that's when I met Heath Hanna. And then I went to see Contour a few times, and then Morgan Corp. I mean, I told them, they were like, so how does this work? And I'm like, I'll go anywhere. And they took that literally, and they sent us everywhere. Everywhere. So we covered a lot of ground, and I think it was me and Angel in Charlotte. and I just posted on Instagram like, hey, we're going to be in Charlotte. And it was like a Saturday or Sunday night or something like that, and hanging out. It must have been a multi-week trip, and we just had a weekend off. And I just posted, hey, we'll be in Charlotte. We're going to eat dinner here if anybody wants to stop by. Not expecting anybody to stop by. And Kurt, your brother, shows up. Never met this guy before.
Ready to go.
Never talked to him. He's like, hey, I thought I'd stop by. So we had dinner with Kurt.
That's so good.
And then after that, I'm following Kurt and seeing what he's doing in the construction world. And I remember watching a project that he worked on for a while for this apartment. I feel like with this, it must have been like this creek that ran through it or something like that.
It was on, but yes, you're right. Both sides of the creek.
Yeah, there were some pretty big retaining walls and like a bridge to go over it.
Brownfield site.
Yeah, it was a shit site.
Yeah,
and they really had to build this thing up.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like really had to build it up.
Yeah.
And then we start working with you guys, and then now everybody's coming together, and it's just like this is a crazy story.
It's been past 2 years of it's almost 2 years this week or the World of Asphalt week that I stopped by and met the team and Ben and everybody. So and that's when it started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your dad was involved in all of this before you guys were. Your dad's been in the industry.
Grandfather, yeah.
So you guys are third generation.
Third, yep.
Damn.
And he started in lumber, or his father started in lumber business in Charlotte in the 20s.
Okay.
And in 73, he saw the writing on the wall with Home Depot and the big lumber guys and saying, this is not gonna, family lumber store is not the way to make a living for the next 30 years.
Sure.
So that's when he just left and went in the grading. And then my dad just never did anything else.
Okay. So you guys grew up around the grading business. How did the family tree start to split off in different directions? Like at what point did that start to happen?
So dad came along with grandfather in 79.
Yeah.
And straight out of high school, went to work.
Uh-huh.
I was born in 87, went straight to work, went to school. But, you know, like a lot of us that grew up in it, right? You just, if you're out of school, you're working.
Yeah.
You're out at 11:30 for Thanksgiving break. You're on job site by 12. So I grew up in it. Kyle and Kurt, you know, for the most part did too. You know, when your father has one of you, you know, he's just normally grabbing one out of bed on Saturday and saying, let's go, not all three, but there were, you know, they were around it equally.
Yeah.
So I graduated high school, didn't necessarily know this is what I wanted to do. I had a really bad knee injury playing football, and that kind of sealed, you know, you're not going anywhere else to do anything. Military's kind of out, you know, you get pointed in that direction and went all in, went to school at night, civil engineering, and
so you did civil?
Yeah, civil.
Oh, so you know all about the bullshit.
I'm like a credit away from having a plaque to put on the wall. So
you didn't get all the way.
No,
oh man,
no,
man,
got busy.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all.
So that was in 2005, 2008, 9. We all know kind of how that went, and I was still with my dad. Right, we had 15, 16 employees, so not the overhead and the burden like a lot of the guys had in our area.
Yeah.
All right, so we had some work. Grandfather and dad beating my head that we weren't going to go work cheap. You know, we could do little things here and there to keep everybody paid. You know, no equipment debt. It was just we were fortunate to be where we were.
Yeah, kind of hunker down.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Me, young and stupid.
Yeah.
Say, Pop, this is, you know, we've got to pick up work. We've got to be working. And it just drove me mad trying to bid work. You know, couldn't pick up anything for the dollars we needed to. And at that point it's kind of, you know, running a project or two, kind of the field operation per se, you know, helping bid, just overall business stuff. And it was straining relationships. And so 2010, Yeah, going into the winter of 2010, I had a hard conversation with Pop standing in the basement and said, I'm out. And that, looking back, that probably had a lot to do with where we are today. It made me get out and learn, and then just learn other ways of doing things and probably mature in a big way, right? Pop wasn't there to keep, he wasn't the guardrail anymore like he was for years. And so I went to work for a paving company in Monroe. Never did asphalt before, but smaller business. And I kind of ran the day-to-day part of it, right? Learned how to pave, learned how to set stone properly, learned that side of the business. Did that for 2 years, realized that wasn't a place that I wanted to be long-term. And left, and then started Barton Contracting with a partner in May of 2012.
Okay.
So at that point, Kurt was coming in the Hal Abernethy side of the business. And, then it was Barton. Kyle was at school at Liberty, and his path really didn't lead him. It wasn't going to lead him in the business, is what it looked like at that point.
Yeah.
So May of 2012, started Barton Contracting and didn't have anything.
What'd your dad think of you going out on your own? Did that strain the relationship, or?
It strained it for those 2 years, partly because I was making just other boneheaded decisions, in life that, that he didn't agree with. And,
Sure.
and looking back, everything he said was right. I mean, but it, he said a lot of times, hey, if these guys wouldn't have gone out and kind of found their own feet, then may not be here today. But when we started Barton, it started coming back, because then we started working kind of for Hal Abernethy, right? So we'd do the paving.
And that was the family business.
That was a family business.
Yeah.
So started doing some things together, and then they just watched, it grew. We grew Barton pretty quick. The wrong way.
Sure.
Absolutely. I mean, it's,
Sure.
maybe, next time we can talk about what not to do when growing a business, because I told everybody I tried to go out of business for 10 years and somehow didn't.
Yeah, we just gave it our best shot over the past few years.
Yeah. So somehow I didn't succeed at driving it completely in the ground, but went from me, my partner, and his next door neighbor, high school kid, in May of 2012 to when we merged 1/1 of 23. We had 140 employees.
Shoot.
Did turn, basically everything except bridges and striping and, stuff like that. But I mean, so we had massive growth. For me anyways, there's guys that have been probably 10 times that, but no systems in place properly, no processes, the wrong people. Good hearts in some of them, but just the wrong people, right? And at the beginning of 22, I realized I had watched, and at this point, back and forth, but Kurt was in the family business around 15 full time. Kyle came in about 17, 18, and I watched those two guys just be studs. And they were studs at the little stuff, still just running a good, solid business. Kyle was running the pre-construction, handling the project management. Kurt was in the field crushing it. And, the scale is different, but they were killing it. And I really started to watch for sure, 19, 20, 21, like, man, these guys know what they're doing, right? And I was just spinning. We were COVID is what it was to, I mean, we didn't slow down. We didn't really have, we just worked hard through it and, got some free money from Uncle Sam and kept going. So it didn't have a big effect necessarily on the Barton side of things, but it just let me say this is not sustainable. Like, I've got to put leaders around me that, because I mean, it was bad enough that, we just pushed. I could be in the low boy at midnight running a mill out of Raleigh. We'd grown to have a division in Raleigh at that point, and, good relationship with my people and trying to care for them. Yes, you go home. I got this. And,
Sure.
6:30 at night, I load up in low boy and go to Raleigh to pull a mill back for the next morning. And that's not sustainable. I did it for 10 years almost and just drove myself in the ground. So, end of 21, beginning of 22, I finally had a conversation with Kyle that said, what does this look like if we try to figure out how to come back together? At that point, my partner was, I knew enough that he was ready to, the business has kind of outgrown him, right? And excellent sales, loves to get in front of people, could bring the work in. Well, at that point in the business, the work just kept coming no matter what. We just weren't, the work that came in the door, we weren't bidding it right. We weren't working for the right people. We weren't, managing it right. So it necessarily wasn't the acquisition of work. It was the way we performed the work. Had the conversation with Kyle early January. We had some real estate deals. My dad's shop had sold, so they were going to be forced to build. My shop had sold, so we were going to be forced to build. So there was some outside pressures that I thought, hey, maybe this is worth looking at. So had lunch with Kyle. My dad calls that night and says, calls Kyle and says, so you're planning a coup? No, Pop. So that was pretty good. But, from middle of January of 22, it took us 12 months to pull the pieces together of what that was going to look like. And, having never gone through something like that, right? So, I mean, essentially it was a buyout on one side, and then basically a buyout / merger on the other side, and to bring that together.
So you were buying out the family business, but then your dad was getting out of the family business, I take it?
So I bought out my partner.
Oh,
so that was a clean buyout, right?
I see.
And then I had to turn around and essentially with my brothers buy my dad out.
Yeah.
And then take that and merge the two together.
Gotcha.
So that was exciting.
Exciting is probably one word for it. Yeah.
Do not recommend to do that all in a year with everything else we had going on, but
it's pretty fascinating though. You don't hear about that all that much.
No.
The kid goes out on their own and then ends up buying the family business.
Yeah.
And then everybody comes back together.
Exactly.
There's
one other person that has done something like that on a greater scale, and we obviously, Herb was one of the first phone calls.
I guess so. Yeah.
We made, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as that was, you guys through, you guys came along, met Randy. Through that connection, Herb. Yeah. And I mean, Herb, what a godsend through some of that, just with some, hey, this is what not to do. This is how, and it looked a little bit different. Herb was buying a beast, right? I mean, I had a small animal compared to what Herb did, but
and he had the French involved.
His is a lot better, but
yeah, there were a lot of mines in that minefield.
Yep. So, but having guys like that to kind of help through that process. And the biggest thing was, and this, but getting a bank on board. I mean, and I tell my bank every chance I get, as much as I don't appreciate and like all the rules and regs and covenants surrounding it, but you've got to get somebody that's going to take a chance.
Absolutely. And I think that's a lot of people don't understand how this kind of stuff works. But yeah, you have to get outside financing in some capacity, whether it's another partner or private equity or a bank or whatever it is. The financing has to come from somewhere, because it's like, you don't just go to your bank account like, oh yeah, so what's the purchase price, and write a check. Like, It doesn't work that way.
Ooh, short 6 zeros. Oops.
And even just that process, like just getting a bank and getting the right lender and putting that whole package together is a monster task in itself.
Yeah, and first conversation I had was on a plane. A good friend of mine in a community bank in town, and first thing I did was, am I stupid? Right? Mm-hmm. Would you ever be interested in? Yeah, let's look at it. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you this, they didn't do it because of financials. They did it because of a relationship.
Sure.
And hey, we see where these guys can go, and they were willing to take a chance.
It's a conditional relationship, though, I've learned. I think, especially with banks, it's a conditional relationship.
Until,
we're going to do this. We believe in you, but you better deliver.
That's right. Yeah.
And so it's not without its pressure.
Well, sign up for something you can deliver on, right? Because if you don't, that's not another conversation.
No. And I've read enough stories to know it's like, we had a great relationship until it wasn't great. and then I learned, this is conditional. This is not unconditional.
And then even too, you learn, there were banking relationships for years in place.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't touch it. They wouldn't touch it.
Yeah.
So then you have somebody that's, and those of past years been, when I say fun, it's been interesting to watch kind of who will stand with you and who won't, right? Mm-hmm. Bonding company for 10 years bailed on me.
Sure. Yeah.
Halfway through the merger, they were like, "Yep, we don't have the appetite for this." I'm like, "Guys, never had a bond called, never not finished a project.
Mm-hmm.
What's the issue? Balance sheet.
Sure.
Adios." Yeah. So started from scratch there, right?
Yeah.
Just stuff that, having done it now, if I ever had to do it again, it would make a lot more. It would probably be a lot smoother.
Mm-hmm. What? Was there like one instance, was there like a point in time where you're like, all right, this is not sustainable? Or was it like a gradual realization?
On the Barton side?
Yeah, before this happened.
It was gradual. And I'll tell you, that's a question I probably should have asked myself. It was gradual. And every time I felt it, it seemed like I just worked harder. Mm-hmm. And, we'd have a bad month, or we'd have cash flow issues or something. It's like, okay, just got to work harder, just got to push harder.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't have those systems and processes in place to say, oh, this is not a production problem, this is a bid problem, or a vendor issue. Who knows? We didn't even have a PO system in place. Who knows what we were being charged, right? Mm-hmm. You have to trust your people that they're approving the right invoices and such. And so it was gradual, but the end of 21 was like, guys, we're taking on water. Mm-hmm. Like something, we either are going to have to make major changes and probably shrink down, right? To get our hands back around it, or something like this was going to have to happen.
Uh-huh.
And, what happened wasn't a pile of cash coming in or a bunch of equipment. It was just people. Like, we just put the right people on the bus. Mm-hmm. And Kyle and Kurt brought some great people. We had family friends that knew my grandfather. My dad retired. My CFO, came, didn't have to work another day, but said, "Hey guys, I've been waiting for something. Let's go do this." He brought a team. It just, watching, that was probably the best part, was just watching the people start to take place.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Kyle and Kurt were, those two guys have saved my life. But
you probably lost some people through the process too, I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
Which is part of it. Yeah. Before you can get those people into places, you need places for them. And
you go into it, and I'm sure you know this, but you go into it thinking, I'm going to be able to keep everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like there's a place here for everybody. You find out real quick that some people either aren't rowing the same direction, they're not rowing the same speed everyone is, and that was slow. Like merger was announced, a little bit, lost one. Go a little bit longer, lost two.
Mm-hmm.
Go a little bit longer. Okay, this guy's not a fit, right? And yes, but you look back now and you're like, hey, those were great people at the time,
mm-hmm.
but they weren't the people to get us where we're going. They helped us get here, and but looking back now, I can think like there wasn't a place for some of those people in this new organization.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that, especially, with any company, it's like, 200-person company, a 100-person company goes to a 200-person company. The 200-person company is a different company.
Mm-hmm.
It could have the same name, some of the same people, do the exact same thing. It's a different company.
For sure.
And there's a lot of people that are going to come along, but a lot of people are not going to come along on their own, on their own basis,
mm-hmm.
or they're not going to come along. And you have to essentially say, yeah, they're not going to come along.
Well, and you find out that the 200-person company is not what they signed up for.
Yeah, and you can't fault them for that.
No,
yeah.
and you're like, one of our leaders at Barton, and he didn't sign up. Great guy, love him to death,
mm-hmm.
but he wanted the 120 person, not the new beast, right? And those are probably the ones that hurt the most.
Yeah.
Because they can do it. They can handle the job and fill that position. But something inside them is not willing to move.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just want to grab them and shake them. Like, come on. Like,
we got this.
This is in everybody's best interest. Yep. Or I've seen, some people, like you just work with them for so long. Like, please, can you let's go. And then it just gets to a point where it's like, all right, this just is not working. And then, it works out for them, but it's like they go outside and then they find whatever I was hoping for them to find here, and they're kicking ass. It's like, where was that 6 months ago?
Could have used that now, guys.
Yeah, fuck. And I still think it would be better off together for a lot of folks, but at the same time, it's like, cool, that's what's best for them. We need to do what's best for us, and but it doesn't make it any easier. It is not a fun process. Not a fun process.
No, and you never get hard enough to deal with it easily, right?
No.
It's always, and especially when you set out to build a culture that I'm going to do right by my people, I'm going to care for my people, I'm going to love my people. Those conversations don't get any easier.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm so thankful for you guys and your team. Y'all sat down with us and we created a set of values,
mm-hmm.
and I drove it in my head, and I drove it in our people's head, that we will lead, whether that's hire, fire, make decisions by, who we work for, where we work, all these things on those set of values. And honestly, those hard conversations have been a little bit easier because, guys, you don't align with the values we have in place. And that's that's what I didn't do for years. And it was just such an eye opener when it's very clear who we are and how we are going to operate. You either fit or you don't. And there's play a little bit there, but that's been a huge blessing.
Well, it goes back to the initial point of the importance of communication. All values is you're just communicating the expectations
mm-hmm.
and the desired behavior within the organization. That's all it is you're just communicating what needs to happen, how people need to act.
Mhm.
And I see it as freeing for everybody, because then they're not guessing what is okay and what's not okay. You're not frustrated because people aren't living according to your values, essentially. And it makes things, I don't know how companies operate without that, honestly. I couldn't even imagine it. I don't know how it's possible.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I've made it a point now to watch some of even the companies in our space. Like, there's companies out there that don't have them.
Mm-hmm.
That don't. Companies that you visit, we know, a
lot of very big companies too. Yeah.
And it's like, guys, put them on the walls. Like, put them on a little business card size. I'm like, get them in front of your people.
Yeah. But it's harder than that. You have to really work them into the organization and hold the line.
Yes.
Like you said, like, you really have to hire and fire based on them. And that's hard. That's hard work. Like, I think it is hard work to actually work them through a business.
So a bigger company, good point. So a bigger company, that their struggle is the leaders probably aren't engaged with the bulk of the.
Yeah, it just becomes such a monster. And so it's like, you can give everybody cards, really cool cards with your values on it.
Yep.
It's not going to do shit.
Because, yeah, and so
if you're not really working those into every individual, every conversation, every job site, every project, it needs to be really worked through the organization and enforced in a way. And the companies that do it, like, there are other companies in your market, like a Hoopah, for example, it's like, they clearly do it. And
Absolutely.
It's no question. Like, you don't have to wonder if they're operating with a system like that. It's like, yeah, they are. Or a sergeant. Like, it's you don't have to wonder.
Those are good examples of it probably coming from the top down, right?
It's got to.
It's got to
at the top. Yep.
And it just has to be pushed through the ranks. And yeah, so then you look at some of the other big national guys, and that makes sense why they can't. But you got to figure it out.
Yeah,
I mean, you've got to.
Well, until the next generation, people want to know who they're working for. And that's where I mean, that's why we created the Area Dirt World Summit and the event, to really elevate leaders and help everybody communicate more effectively. And I want to know who I'm working for. And I think, again, those top companies, yeah, it is from the top down. Everybody knows who's driving it from the top down, because they're communicating it in one way or another. Yeah, I think it's so critical. And without that, like, I think there are companies that still work where the guy or whoever it is behind the scenes. But I'm increasingly starting to realize I don't think that's the model forward. I think there has to be a degree in which whoever's at the top is out in front in some ways, saying, hey, this is where we're going. This is why we're going here. I don't think it's really a behind the scenes deal in a way anymore in construction. Sense. And I could be wrong.
No. You're right. And I think that's one of the struggles I know I have as growth continues. I used to be on the job all the time. I mean, a job, not multiple going on, but I mean, now it's hard to find time to get out and see anybody. And it's just, but I'll tell you what, I mean, you see the guys light up, you see their excitement when I get out and throw on a hard hat, throw on a vest, and just whether walk up to them beside a ditch and ask them how they're doing, or crap, if I could run a dozer for half. I mean, it makes a difference. It really does.
Yeah.
And that's the company's having the success right now in a big way. You're exactly right. That from a top down, they're pushing it, and it's not. But it's through the division managers and the superintendents and the foremen, and it's all of that, right?
Yeah.
And it is just pushing down, and that's what we want. I mean, Kurt's taking on a new role. I watched him get beat down the past year, like it did to me. Just kind of as an overall operations manager, and that's a big job for somebody who likes to be as hands-on as Kurt is, right? So his new role is just to go out there and be with our people. Mm-hmm. Just work on a paving crew for a day, work on a pipe crew, figure out their needs, figure out where we're not being efficient. You know, just be with our people. And that's exciting for me because that's, you know, they're going to go home and they may say, hey, I had Kurt on my job today. I had Abernethy he didn't have to be there, but you know, he was in the ditch shoveling with me for the day. And that's, you know, just something to stay connected.
Yeah. I'm thinking through this. I worked for this one company. We were on kind of like an island, in a sense, like we were just out in the middle of nowhere working. I didn't see anybody of any significance, you know, all summer. And you just get the feeling like, what are we doing out here? And we're having a great time, and it was kind of nice not to get bothered, but at the same time, it's like this weird disconnect from the bigger picture. Like you don't feel like you're part of anything bigger than yourself.
And then what are you doing it for, right?
Like
at that
it's
point,
a job.
It's just a paycheck, right?
Yeah, it's a job. Yeah. And so it's like, I'm just a number. I'm a hired hand. I'm going to learn a lot out of this, but I didn't get the warm and fuzzy feeling. And it's like, I had offers with some of these companies and I didn't go to work for them because it was like, I'm willing to work no matter, I am willing to put in as many hours as I need to.
Mm-hmm.
I'll work 24 hours a day. I've already done it. Like I have no problem with that, but I want there to be like a purpose behind it. I just don't want to trade my time for money. Like I don't see that as the good decision to make here.
Yeah.
And I think that increasingly matters. Like I want to know I'm part of something bigger than me. I want to be part of a team. I want to know who I'm working for.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know why we're doing what we're doing. And I'm willing to work as hard as I can for that. But I want to know who's who.
I think that's probably been like a generational shift, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably the generation before us. Maybe they either didn't care about that or didn't think about it or what. But you're exactly right. And I'm just thinking about a handful of my guys, like they'll get out and they would run through that wall for me if I asked them to.
Yeah.
But it's because I'm right there with them or they understand why we're going to run through that wall, right?
Well, you know where I've noticed it is like the second generation.
Okay.
Or the third generation. I think there's immense respect. Whoever started the business and built the business, there's typically immense respect for these individuals because they got it off the ground. They worked alongside everybody for a very long time. They still probably work alongside everybody because that's why they got into it. I don't think you can build a construction business without really enjoying this line of work because it's so brutal.
That's right.
It's so fucked up. Like if you wanted to just make money, you'd go be in real estate or finance or whatever.
Something other than this.
So much more money.
Yeah.
So I think there has to be a degree in which you enjoy it to even survive. And and then it gets passed to the second, third generation, and I've seen it done really successfully. I've seen it done not at all successfully, because then there's just like, there can be a disconnect from the work and what it took to get there. And it's not even their fault because they weren't there. They were probably raised in a more comfortable setting than their
exactly right.
The generations before them.
Food was on the table, whether or not
Yeah. And they sometimes take a more conservative, like they're kind of in behind the scenes. And it drives me crazy because it's like, if I were working at your company, I would want to know who the hell I work for. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's like, I more so see that with the big corporations or multi-generational businesses sometimes.
And they, long time ago, me and my dad were out in Montana. I was probably still in high school. And he said his third and this, he was relating it to the ranching and farming business, but I think exactly what you just said is third generation-itis, right? First generation starts it, second generation grows it. There's been quite a few times third generation has just blown it or just drove it in. I mean,
and I don't envy the third generation.
Yeah.
I don't envy them. That's a hard place to be in.
And I think I mean, in our case, some of us would be third generation, and I could either be first or third, but whatever. But the difference was like nothing was handed. Like you are going to work for it. You whether your name's on the side of the door or not, we're working on Saturdays. If there's something to be done, or if shop floor swept, it's so much. Got so much to be thankful for from a dad, grandfather. They never, grandfather worked up until the day he couldn't.
Yeah,
his father came home, died in the shower, or came home from work, and that was that. So
that's a good way to go.
Now my I essentially retired, but now works harder than he did when he was running a business. But that's just how and it's a different type of work, obviously, for him. But you're right. It's a second or third generation has such an opportunity without the stress of the early stages of a business. Why not go take advantage of that and get in front of your people and there's something to be said. You're exactly right.
I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's like I think the most well-respected leaders I've seen in this industry so far, they do maintain that level of connection with their people. I'm just sitting here thinking through, like, I go see Reed Contracting for the first time in Alabama.
Yep.
This is a big company.
Yeah.
Big fucking company. Probably 800 people.
Yep.
I walk into the job trailer at this random job site, and there's a bunch of guys looking at the plans. They're all just guys on a site. And so I say hey to everybody. And I walk out, and the guy I was with, I was like, that was Mike Reed in there. And I was like, what do you mean? Who was Mike Reed? He's like, oh, this guy, like, that was Mike Reed. I was like, what? Huh? What? And it's like, in a way that tells me everything I need to know. Not everything, but like, if that was the one data point I had, I'd feel pretty good about judging where that company is, or how that company does, or like a Larry Ames.
I was going to say that's one of my favorite some of my favorite stuff has been the stories that you've done on Larry. Like, well, we talk about Larry today. Like, Kurt, that's what I want you to do.
The guy, like, he's not from a communicator. Like, he's not preaching and writing, and I don't think he even knows what social media is. But he communicates by, like, doing the work and being with his people a lot. And, the first time I saw the guy, we're on a commercial project for a big GC in Denver. And they have a hard hat policy, of course, because it's a big GC and they're building a big warehouse. And Larry's out there. There's an excavator digging footings. He's not even in the excavator. He has the grade rod, checking grade for the guy in the excavator with the GC's hard hat on, because he doesn't even have a hard hat. and that's the rules on the job site.
Got to check grade today. You're gonna need your hard hat.
And it's just like, what? This is the guy. And it's like, if I worked for a guy like this,
you just push.
There's nothing I wouldn't do.
Oh, I love, and you're exactly right. If you think about what that means to that crew that day that Larry's out holding the grade rod.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sorry if it goes sideways, you don't have much to worry about. I'm sure Mr. Ames can figure it out, right? And it just, the confidence, the encouragement that it gives to that crew. And if you could figure out how to, I don't know, that's another just struggle. How do you do it across a big organization, right?
Yeah,
because Larry can't be everywhere.
No,
but the impact he had on the employees and team members that day is immense.
But he doesn't need to be everywhere. He doesn't need to be there every day. Sometimes it's just like, once in a year would be enough. But I've been at companies where the guy or whoever, you never see them ever.
I can't imagine.
And it's or they show up and like they kind of drive by, and you get excited about it, and then they're driving away, and it's like, oh, okay. Like it almost just takes the wind out of you in a way.
Yeah. Guilty. Oops.
Yeah. Well, but no, I know. Like,
but you're right.
I'm not here criticizing for people's different management style. I'm just talking from my perspective. Like, I'll criticize myself. We had a company meeting here maybe 2 years ago. I don't know when it was. It was a while ago. And we had a leadership meeting for that whole day. And I was coming off some really intense travel. I don't know what it was, but it was the only time in my life where I just had to leave the meeting. I slept in this room. I slept on the floor right there. I just had to sleep. Like I was just, my body was just like, we're done. There was nothing I could do. It was one of the only times in my life where it's like, I just need to sleep right now. It was pretty surreal.
Yeah.
And then that evening, I sleep for a few hours. We have everybody in the office, and it's 6 to 8 or whatever it is. I leave at 7:45, and we got feedback from our team like a month or two later, and it's like, wow, Aaron makes us come in on Sunday. It was a Sunday, and he doesn't even stay the whole time, and it was just like a dagger.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, you can do everything right. But to that one individual, I don't even know who the hell it was, that one individual seeing me leaving early, the guy, that is what sets me back. And it's like, you want to get pissed off. Like, do you understand? But it's like, no, they don't understand.
No, they don't.
Why should they understand? That's not their problem. What they saw was me leaving early. And so it's like, realizing that as a leader, like everything I do has this increased scrutiny, has been humbling and something good to recognize.
And the constant, those of us who are fortunate, I think about the companies who work multiple states or multiple areas, right? I mean, I'm lucky enough to, we're in one little city, and my people can see me, but hopefully your overall actions and just your presence, right, can help make up for that 15 minutes that you weren't at the party, right? And that's when that's the first thing I go to. But then you have to step back and you have to say, okay, well, that person, that individual did not think about my last week or what I have going on the next morning, or the fact that I just can't be around people right now. I need silence, right? So you just, it teaches you just grace, right? And it's, some of us are probably a lot of, I think in leadership, you probably have to want it. There's a part of it that's not just, well, I didn't sign up for this. You did sign up for this, right? So now you just have to man up. And those are, there's been some humbling experiences, especially, over the past couple of years, but even before that, where I was working as hard as I could work, but making it seem like every decision wrong. Just swing and missing. The intent was right? Heart was right, working hard, but it was just a whiff. So,
well, and yeah, you can work as hard as you've ever worked and still be wrong, or still do a bad job. I learned that in, through school. Everybody says, well, if you work hard, you can get A's. It's just a matter of how hard you work. And I'm like, yeah. And then I get to circuits. And I had never worked harder in my life. I studied so hard. I went to office hours. I did everything I could for circuits, and I got a D. And that was passing. So I took the D and I moved on because I was at the limiter. I gave it 100% and I got a D. And it's like, oh, okay. So hard work doesn't necessarily equate to winning. Like,
no.
I can go work hard at something. I can go work hard at a losing strategy. And no matter how I work, I'm still going to lose because it's a losing strategy. So,
and that's what I lived, for 5+ years, just
Uh-huh.
had the best intent, and boy, we worked hard.
Yeah.
I mean, we worked, but it's not always the hard work.
Well, and then, a lot of your hard work no one sees. And I've realized this too. And so you have all these people building shit, and you worked probably as hard as you've ever worked to get this deal done over the past 2 years. And it was probably hell. I can't even imagine. I've been through something similar over the past 2 years. It's just been a fucking grind every single day of the week. Like,
you want to know why? Because a lot of what you went through, we don't have a lot of control.
Yes.
And that is that is probably what ate me, and, listen to you. That's what kills. It's nothing we can go do.
Well, and in my situation, probably similar to your, like, there really isn't an end to it either. Like, you're like, well, at least by January 1, this will all be over. Like, you don't really know when it's going to be over, and it is out of your hands in a way. But our people don't give a shit. They don't care about what I'm doing behind the scenes. They don't care.
They just want to make sure that every other Friday or whenever
they just want to get paid.
Yeah.
They just want to do good work.
Yep.
They just want to do their job.
That's right. Like, just just do business.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That's what we haven't been able to do the past 2 years. You and I is just do business.
Mm-hmm.
No, but thank God we've got good people that can just keep doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. But if I were to sit here and play victim, like, how hard I've been working for this company, and you don't even know what I've been doing, this and this and that. Like, do you think that's going to have a positive result? Like, no. And so I've had to pull myself back. Hey, it's not about you. Like, they don't fucking care. And you see this a lot with, like, relationships, typically a father figure. Like, how hard I've worked for this family and this and that. and the kids don't care, because it's like, all we see is you're not around.
That's right.
So all of the hard work, we see none of that. None of that registers to us emotionally. And all we can even process, because we're kids, is you are not present at my soccer game or whatever it is.
Father, daughter, husband, wife.
Yeah, families across the board. Yeah.
Right. It's like, you want to live this certain lifestyle. That makes me have to work.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but I want you home.
Exactly.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're and actually I've never equated that back to the employee side, but that is correct.
Yeah. Well, it's something I've had to realize, because it's like, all right, I need to communicate differently, because a lot of my work they can't see, and so they judge based on what they can see. So I better focus on what's important with what they can see, or else they're making their assumptions, and it's not their fault. That's just how the human mind works. If you don't have all the information, you fill in the gaps.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh. Good, bad, and
scary
different.
Thing to think about.
If people don't have the information, they make up the gaps. Like a common misconception with construction business owners, for example, I see construction business owners are super rich. They're just loaded. They're just lining their pockets while everybody else is out there grinding.
I hadn't figured out how to be one of those construction owners.
I haven't met many of them. Let me tell you. I haven't met many of them. And I've met people that have done well, but it's like, I've also seen what it's taken them to get there, and they deserve every bit of it and more. But it's not their people's fault for believing that, because they've never had how money flows through a job explained to them, for example, and how the business works, for example, and how they get paid every week, for example.
And the just the amount of capital it takes just to put iron on a job, and one thing we've learned, and Randy's been a huge asset to some of this, is the old adage of, and my father and grandfather were guilty of beating this in my head, and who knows if he'll ever own up to it or not, but the value of your site business development, grading business, is not in the yellow iron.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll probably be some people that want to choke me out for saying that, but it's not. Most of the times, those are liabilities on a balance sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And
a depreciating asset.
Exactly. And so when you realize that all of a sudden all that yellow out back is not the wealth you're building. It first, it makes you look at equipment ownership a lot different, right? It makes sense to own some stuff, lease some stuff, rent, or whatever. But that was the biggest thing. Like, guys, but look at all this equipment I got. Yeah, you've fully depreciated it, and the rest of it you've got debt against it. Sorry.
Yeah.
So then it just becomes cash in the bank, and there's none of that.
Yeah.
No, there's. I keep hoping that the long term game is is well worth it, but
that's what everybody tells me.
Yeah.
I'm too young to have
we got a lot of years left.
Seen any fruit from any labor. Yeah.
Oh, my tree's dead. I mean, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
it's not even a fruit tree.
I've got my fingers crossed. It's like, fuck, I hope this works. But I don't know. I don't ever go home doubting. In the big picture, it's like, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's a really good, it brings me a lot of, like, a great sense of peace in a way, oddly enough, because a lot of it's not at all peaceful. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, there's nowhere else I should be. Like, this is exactly where I should be.
And you know what? One thing that's helped with maybe not having personal wins and accumulating some great personal wealth is watching our people like take steps up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's guys that either started out of high school with me or maybe they were renting and now they just went and bought their first home or bought their first car those little successes have been wins for me, right? Oh, great. I don't have very much, but at least my people are becoming better and they're getting, and that helps it when you go home at night and, it's been a bad day. Hey, I've changed the lives of a lot or helped change the lives of a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's encouraging.
Yeah. No, now that the dust is starting to settle on everything you've done, I'm excited to see what the next few years have. How many people are at the company right now?
Yeah, I got corrected this week. 175.
Holy shit. That's a handful, man.
I was gone for a week with my daughter on spring break, and I come back and we added a few. So I thought, yeah, it is a handful.
Yeah, that's an operation.
Yeah, for sure. And it's and I get to sit here and say I can't think of any if one or two that's like, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
That's over the past 2 years, it's been able to get some of those bad eggs, and bad for whatever reasons, but those bad eggs out. Now you stand around, you look at them, you're like, oh yeah, these are the people, like, this is what I want standing beside me. And that's been fun.
That's such a good feeling. We just had an executive, we don't always see our team because everybody's remote, but yeah, just having our executive team, Randy, Dan, Kara, Jason,
okay,
here the other week, you just come in, you're just like, I just fucking love working with these people. Like and there's no better feeling. I just fucking love working with this team. This is the best. And that
you got studs around you like you do.
Yeah.
You're right, dude. I couldn't sleep if I didn't have the people around me that I've got. And I didn't have it for so many years. And now when you see it, and you too probably, it's like, dude, they got this.
Uh-huh.
I can go away for a day or two and this place is going to be here when I get back.
Yeah, no, 100% with what I've always had to be that way because I've traveled so much.
Uh-huh.
So I've always had to be disconnected from the business in a way, but that's also bitten me in a way. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people get drained by the people they work with, but it's like, but if you find the right people, you can actually get energy, like you get fired up from it. Like, I want more of that. I just want as much of this as possible because this is like Superman juice. And I just give me as much as I can because this is just getting me more and more and more fired up. I'm like finally getting my head out of the sand and looking around me now. I'm like, Oh, okay. This is cool.
And when they know their roles, we've taken time for job descriptions, and I'm sure, you guys did 100 times better than that than we ever did. But, stuff
No,
like,
we're working through that right now.
I mean, that's
with EOS.
important. Yeah. I mean, like, I want Randy again. One thing he beat in my head: to be clear is to be kind, right? That we are going to be clear to our people. They are going to know their job. They are going to know what we expect. And then we can just hold, our job's to hold them accountable.
Yeah.
And that's huge. I mean, it gives your people safety. It gives them, some guardrails, which, we all operate better in. But, it's just when you have a team of studs around you that know what they do or know what they need to do, it's a different world.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm excited. I want to see your office too. I bet it's
May 3rd.
I bet it's just something else. Well, I go to Australia for the month, and then
In May.
I come back, I think the 5th. I go from Australia and I speak in Kansas City.
Okay.
I come back.
Okay. Oh, no, you're in the area enough to
I'll
swing
swing by one of these days. No, that was one of the best days of last year, getting to grill with you guys and just hang out for a little bit.
Eat a little meat.
Yeah, eat some meat, talk some shit. That was nice. And I think part of it was knowing that we'd be at the RV the following day. You guys at that, I think it was Kurt. He's like, yeah, watch out for the raccoons we have back there.
Yeah.
You guys leave. We're staying out back in your yard next to your shop in the RV.
Yeah.
Me and Jack, Angel went home. And not 5 minutes later, there's a whole family of raccoons in the dumpster.
Surprised they weren't trying to come in with you. You're knocking on the door.
And I walk over, and it's funny because they're having a field day in there. There's all kinds of good stuff. And you walk over there, and it's a few little guys, and they just freeze. Then they're like looking at you, and you're looking right at them. You're like, I see you. Like, I see you. And it's so funny how they all freeze. Yeah. But yeah, a whole family of raccoons.
It's no raccoons at the new place. Until
not yet
until they figure out that we eat some good lunches.
Eat some good stuff. Yeah. They want the scraps. Man.
Ben doesn't finish a steak.
Well, I don't think Ben's ever not finished a steak. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, we'll chew the bone.
I don't think that guy's ever not finished a steak.
Yeah, if you're counting on him to have something left,
man, no,
bet.
Yeah, when it comes to steak, yeah, man, I have had some good steaks with that guy. Yeah, I'm bummed he doesn't live here anymore because I don't eat nearly as well.
Swing on by.
Well, cool, man. Well, thanks for stopping by. People want to see you, Abernethy, but it's with an E.
With an E.
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure Nethy.
Okay. All right.
There's probably one out there with an A that, they may get to see something, but look at the one with an E.
10-4. All right. Well, thanks.
Man, yeah, thanks for having me.